Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Petey Performance Podcast. Solo episode again for you guys today. I'm just back from Dublin. I'm back about an hour now. We were recording for the Backdoor podcast up in Dublin. Fantastic episode with Barry O'Connor. Barry is a good friend of mine from Sydney, actually, and he was in to talk to us all about his exploits down under, playing Aussie rules with the Sydney Swans and the GWS Giants before coming back to Ireland to ply his trade, playing for his club St Martin's down in Wexford, both hurling and football. And to be honest, the lads were badgering me to get Barry on for months. They were really keen to hear all about Australia and what it has to offer in terms of the sporting environment, I guess. And I had actually met Barry playing tag rugby with him, I would say before Christmas of last year, maybe November, December, for the first time. And I had previously asked him to be a guest on this podcast, and he wasn't really keen. So I didn't know what to expect. But then coming back, he was really open to it, actually. And he spoke really, really well today. So that episode will be out for you next week. And it gets pretty explosive. It gets, well, not explosive, it gets passionate, let's say. And there's a few maybe polarizing opinions that Barry feels very strongly about, and I can see why he feels that way as well. And he spoke really well and really eloquently around those issues, why he feels it's unjust. And he was speaking particularly about professionalism in the GAA, so you have that one to look forward to next week. We had an episode with Vicky Wog out today as well, and I haven't checked, but I'd imagine it's getting listened to well and well downloaded. Conor Whelan's episode last week has been well received and well downloaded, which is awesome. And it's been a crazy few weeks, to be honest, because many of you will have seen that we ran the first ever Backdoor Cut Golf Invitational. So we ran that in the Heritage in Portlaoise, not in Portlaoise, in Killinard, in Laois, and we were trying to keep it under wraps, to be honest, because we're creating quite a bit of content off the back of that day, and it hadn't really been done before, but the concept was one that was really exciting us, as well as the caliber of guests that we managed to secure for the day. But it was really stressful trying to put it together. A lot goes into organising something like that you don't really realise. And to be honest, like, it was causing me a few sleepless nights. But I'm delighted now that I went and gave it a go, because I was very much on the fence for a long time with it. I think it was when I came back, or maybe it was when I was still in Oz. I think David Gray had said to me, because I was playing quite a bit of golf. No, I was about a month back, and he saw me putting up some golf content. I was going pretty well, getting well viewed in the story, and he said, do you know what would do really well would be a Backdoor Cut golf day. Now, I said, yeah, potentially. There's lots of like high caliber GAA athletes that play a lot of golf, so it would definitely be a good idea. I don't know about timings and how you would organise it, but maybe it's something to do in the future. And I was watching quite a lot of golf content over the last year, I'd say, on YouTube. It's kind of exploding, especially like people playing rounds with celebrities or other sports people or golfers as well, I suppose. And that content was really, really good. And obviously, as a golfer, I was interested. But I know a lot of people that aren't golfers that still watch that content, because it seems to be more informal. It seems to be a better way to catch interviewees or people to interview, because it is that casual kind of game. You're playing a game and you're just having a chat while you're out there. So people are really at ease and they're really open, and you can ask some really deep questions, really tough questions, and people typically don't mind answering them. As well as that, like, it's easier to leverage a game of golf than it is to get inter-county GAA athlete into a podcast room or a studio. As Barry said earlier, he said it's easy to get an inter-county player onto the golf course because they're already comfortable with that, whereas getting them into a studio to actually voice their opinion and just talk, that's a little bit more difficult or more challenging, because it is just not comfortable for them. It's not something they've done before, and they might feel a little bit of anxiety or doubt as a result of that, proposition. Whereas if you say, do you want to come play a bit of golf? We'll record it. We'll have a bit of crack. We'll have a chat while we're doing it. It's an easier sell. And that was one thing that stood out to me about organising, was it was really easy to get people to say yes to the golf day initially. Like, I thought that was going to be one of the hardest things, was getting people to commit to it. But everybody I asked, pretty much, when I asked them, said, yeah, 100% put me down for that. It just depends on the day, and it depends on the venue, and it depends on when my club championship is, or when I'm going on holidays, etc. And initially we got quite a big crew together of people that were keen. The challenges then came in trying to secure the golf course, number one. I thought that was going to be more challenging, but I didn't think it was going to be as challenging as getting the players to play. Securing sponsorship after that as well, and then our format, as well as probably the major thing and the most complex thing, was getting a crew together to record the whole day, both video and audio, and how the competition would run exactly. So I went about actually calling up loads of golf courses, and I said, like, I was still kind of a bit on the fence about the idea, because I'd got lots of yeses from people, but we were still trying to put podcasts together. We were struggling to get them out regularly, and we weren't struggling. We were succeeding in getting them out regularly, but we weren't. It was hard to get people scheduled in to get them out weekly, let's say. So I had more on my plate in that regard. Then I had other clients that I was focusing on, as I said, and I didn't want another distraction, because it is focused on building brand for the Backdoor Cut podcast, and disrupting, I suppose, the content space for GAA as well is another focus, as well as assisting players to build their own personal brands and just have some fun creating some good content. I suppose it benefits all of us indirectly in terms of building our own personal brands, as well as it being a great networking opportunity too. So I rang all the golf courses all around the country, some of the best around the place. I was actually looking for somebody in the golf space to help me initially, but that was quite difficult. None of them really wanted to help. Some of them said yes initially and then completely ghosted me. Some of them just said flat out no, they didn't have the time to help, which was fine. And some of them were actually pretty rude, which I didn't anticipate, but that was fine. I just decided then and there, is like, look, this is going to be me going and doing this, because Owen and Dara don't have the same background in golf. So they were fine for trying to get players to play and whatnot, but they wouldn't be familiar with golf or golf courses, etc. Like, they were asking me about handicaps and match play and what happens in this event, or 4-ball versus foursomes, etc. So they were going to help me as much as they could, but I knew that wasn't going to be as much as I was going to put into it, I guess. So that's probably what was putting me away from it. But then in my head as well, you have that inner critic saying, look, you could give it a go. You may as well give it a go and see what happens. So I rang up a load of golf courses, one in particular, Savage Golf Course, the Heritage, Kilnard. They were really keen to host us. So that kind of made my decision for me then. It's like, shit, we have to actually go and do this. They gave me a range of dates. One of the dates tied into when Owen was back from abroad, because he was away traveling in the USA and elsewhere as well. Dara wasn't yet gone away to wherever he's going, Bali. He was also on a trip to Berlin recently, which you would have seen. I wasn't yet in Australia. Owen's surgery hadn't yet happened, and it was a weekend day as well, where the golf course was pretty free. So all of those things tied in together, this made this the day that we were going to absolutely have to do it. We had the players, we had the venue, now we had to just go get sponsors. So we moved into phase 3, I guess, which was trying to get sponsors, and we messaged a few people, and we got Whoop and Burke Sports involved last minute enough, like, I suppose in a week or a couple of weeks coming up. We probably could have done a better job of going recruiting sponsors, but the major challenge that we were faced with was, just when we thought we had it all together, we had all the teams down, we had the format down, we had the content running, we had the content team on board, we knew what we were doing. Two of the teams just pulled out last minute for reasons, their own reasons, I guess. But it was frustrating, because the reasons they pulled out for, they may have known in advance, one of the teams at least, the other one not so much. But it would have been better to know they weren't going to be there up front, rather than thinking they were going to be there and then pull out. So that was a big challenge we were presented with. And then we just went about trying to fill those spots. But this is 2 or 3 days out from the event. So it was going to be incredibly hard. We managed to get last minute like 1, 2, 3, 4 teams filled last minute after other teams pulled out, which was pretty monumental, I suppose. 3 of those teams were filled with inter-county teams and some pretty high-profile names, which was class. Like, lads couldn't really get their head around. So it's just a free day of golf in the Heritage, and you have prizes, and all I have to do is me and the lads show up, and we can just play. And I was like, yeah, that's it. If you're comfortable being recorded and having a bit of crack as well as that, then it's yours. And they couldn't really believe this, I suppose. I think, as I said to people previously, because it hadn't been done before, they didn't really know what to anticipate. And then they were also a bit like standoffish too, because they didn't really know what we were getting out of it or what to expect from us out of it. So they thought there was like a hidden agenda or something, but it was just really about growing the brand and then putting together an event that hadn't ever ran before, creating something from like an idea into existence. And I think the fans are going to really, really like it. I think GA fans are going to love watching the crack that the lads have had, and some good golf and some really bad golf. But they're also going to probably just become aware of us as a brand now as a result of putting this day together. The other thing that was great as well was some of these players wouldn't really socialize together ever have the chance to have more than a short chat with each other, and we afforded them the opportunity to play a round of golf together. And the format was quarterfinals, semi-finals, finals. So for every 6 holes, you played against a new group. So you got to connect with different players that you would probably play against quite frequently, but never get the chance to chat to. And I think that was a great opportunity for the players. And so one aspect of it that they really, really liked, because when I was leaving at about 5:30, 6 o'clock, there were 6 players still in the bar, having a bit of food, having a couple of pints, and just chatting shit about football and about other players and Aussie rules and golf and everything, and they seem to be really enjoying it. And that's what we created, which was great, like that opportunity for them to do so. And Owen and Dara and Gary, who helped us out as well, Gaz Gaelic Guide, he like, they all really enjoyed the day as well. And they're not big into golf, but they just thought like, geez, it's great to be involved in this and to just walk around and have a bit of crack. There was great crack out in the course. So I think that will hopefully transcend the content, and that will hopefully be visible on YouTube, how much crack we're having. Getting mic'd up and getting the content crew was another challenge, but we managed to solve it all, I suppose. And then with our last group dropping out from a pretty high profile team on the Wednesday before the Friday when we were having it, like that was stressful. So on Wednesday, Thursday, I think I might have messaged maybe like 40 or 50 different players in the GAA. And I got some responses, but typically it was just too close to the event to even expect to get them to fill that spot. So what we ended up doing, or the idea I came up with on Wednesday night, because I was really stressed, really upset that we were going to have to change the format, didn't know what we were going to do. I just said, look, I'm going to go out and play a few holes here on the golf course in Rossgrey, and like just try clear the head. There'll be no phone, there'll be nobody able to contact me. I'll just hit a few shots and see what happens. And I was pulling up to the course and I just had a thought. I said, well, this event is about the players, yeah, and it's about the content, and we're creating the content for the fans. What better an opportunity for the fans to connect with their players and get to feel like they know their players a little bit better than if we gave 2 listeners the opportunity to play with the players on the day. And I said it to the lads, and we had been being a bit negative, I suppose, earlier in the day and for a couple of days prior when everything was kind of going to shit, or it felt like it was going to shit. And they just thought, that's a fantastic idea. So I said, right, I'll go out on the golf course in the morning, I'll make a reel, we'll do a raffle for whoever enters it, and 2 fans, GA fans, golfers will get the chance to come and play against their heroes essentially and see how they get on. They'll get to connect with them and go around. Realistically, they're probably going to get knocked out in the first round because all of these GA heads are really good golfers, but we'll still give them the opportunity to play a free round. They're still going to play 18 holes. They'll get their dinner on the day. They might have the chance of winning a couple of prizes and just a day to enjoy, I suppose. And so a few people entered on Thursday, and we said we'd announce it at 6 o'clock. I had arrived at the Heritage. I was staying there overnight, so I wasn't late because of electric picnic traffic, obviously, coming from Roscrea. And I did raffle, and it turned out 2 lads from Roscrea won the raffle. 2 lads who I know. One guy, the guy that won, I wouldn't know quite as well, but I had actually done a coaching session with him in the past. The other guy that was his playing partner, I know really well. So that was quite funny. One of them is a really, really, really good golfer. The other guy is a good golfer, let's say. Like he can swing a golf club. He's solid. But still, I didn't think that in terms of handicaps, because one was a low handicap, other was a high handicap, I thought they might get beaten by one of the other teams in which we had maybe 2 low handicaps. So they turned up, they couldn't fathom how it was free as well. I was getting asked, how much are green fees for us? And I was like, lads, it's free. He won the raffle. So they couldn't get over that. So I thought that was a great way to salvage the situation and also maybe make the best of what was a bad situation for us. And now I'm really, really glad that we did that, because the 2 lads showed up, couldn't get over, like they got into their Burke Sports Polo. They were out in the second last group. They were playing against... Who did they play? The 2 Kildare lads in their first round game, their quarter final. And they were just delighted to be there. So I went off with the second group, which was Tipperary and Galway. Owen was up front with Wexford and Fermanagh. And then I think it was Gary was at the back with Westmeath and Louth. So I anticipated, look, Westmeath are really, really strong. They're probably going to get through to the final. Tipperary are quite strong here as well, but also are Wexford. I think either of those 2 teams could go through to the final, but I was just concentrating on commentating on my game. So you'll see all that content in the coming weeks, and I'm not going to give away who won each match or whatever, but the 2 fans ended up doing really, 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 really well. So that is giving away a little bit, but that made for even better content, I think, because nobody was expecting them to do that well. I ended up playing a little bit as well because of unforeseen circumstances. That was not anticipated. And I suppose I'd been wound up that morning because the trophy for the event actually got dropped off at the wrong hotel, which was about 30 minutes away, but was also going to put me right in the middle of electric picnic traffic. So when I got up, I tried to make sure everything at the course was ready to go, and then I had to try and source that trophy. Then I had to try and make sure everybody was clear on the rules, all the groupings were ready to go, content team knew what they were doing. We headed out, I was commentating, I was having a great time commentating, I was having a bit of crack with the players, and then halfway through the round, Pete, you've got to play. Because I had my clubs, obviously, and Dara and Owen don't really play golf, and one of our players was down a teammate, so I said, okay, I'll jump in. I have never been that nervous before in my life, and I was so anxious, probably and on edge, that it meant that I was either going to sink or swim. And when I was going around initially during the day, I was doing a really, really good job of being present and being like, this is amazing, out here with these intercounty players, having a bit of crack, creating some good content, and on a beautiful sunny summer's day as well in the Heritage, which was like, that was the star of the show in itself. The golf course was amazing. And I was doing a good job at being present then, but then immediately when I had a golf club in my hands, I stopped being present, started being both future focused and past focused, and maybe catastrophizing a little bit, and not being focused in the moment. Initially, I started doing pretty okay, I guess, which was a shock, but then I completely fell apart. But you'll be able to watch that on the content coming. We're going to release it over the course of September. But that was a pretty full-on day, obviously. Started at about 7:30, was up, running around trying to get everything sorted. Drove home left at about 5:30. I think I got home about 6:30 or so. But yeah, I was exhausted. And then the next day after that, so this was a big weekend for me. And that's what I'm coming on to talk about today, is kind of just a review of a big weekend and plans for the future, I guess. I had the Irish Strength and Conditioning Network conference, so the ISCN conference, and I was invited to it by Pádraig. Thank you, Pádraig or Pádraig? Pádraig, I think. Thank you, Pádraig. And like, yeah, that was really nice to be invited to that. So I knew that I probably needed a day off because of the lack of sleep over the course of the week, the stress and all that had been going on, all the driving, etc. But I really wanted to make myself available for that, given that they were so kind as to offer me the opportunity to go up. So I said, look, it's fine. I'll do a bit of a run. I think I went on a bit of a run on Friday night and then got up and the next morning and said, look, I'll just get up super early, drive up. It'll be fine. I'll stick around, meet some faces, meet some people in strength and conditioning, learn some things from some top practitioners, and kind of say thank you to them for inviting me by showing up and being my best self when I show up, obviously. So drove up, absolutely exhausted, to be honest, but like was getting hyped up for some of the presenters and presentations that were going to be there, and meeting some top quality coaches and practitioners up there too. And it was different to what I expected. It was good in some ways, and in other ways, maybe it gave me some ideas as well. So like, first of all, driving in, saw Brenda Bannon, who was playing a part in proceedings that day, and gave her a bit of a beep, so I did, and then pulled in. I was running a little bit late just because of traffic on the way up. EP obviously again on the Saturday, so there was a little bit of traffic. Got in, sat at the back of the amphitheatre or the lecture room, whatever you call it, and sat down for a couple of the lectures. First couple of lectures really, really good. Hamstring rig up first with Martin McIntyre, I believe. That was a great presentation. Brenda played a part in that. Seemed to be over in a flash. Like, I was taking a lot in because it was obviously very, very appropriate to what I do and what I deal with on a daily basis. So I thought a lot about that. And do you know what? Like, this is a piece of advice for anybody going to seminars. You'll never have the opportunity to ask as many questions as you want to ask when the presentation is going on. Like, I wrote down tons of questions and they just didn't have time to go into them because the presentation almost ran over and there's a time allocation. So that person that gave that presentation, they're going to be there for the rest of the day. So don't kind of think to yourself, oh, I don't know if I'll go up and annoy them or whatever. Go up and talk to them and ask them the questions that you had. They will have the answers for those questions, and they will be enamored by you being that enthusiastic about their presentation and taking such a keen interest in what they have been presenting on, to have you engage with them and show your interest by asking questions. So I went straight up to Martin at lunch, asked him tons of questions. He loved it. Like, he was really happy about it, and he actually even offered me to go for a coffee if I'm ever out Mayo direction again, which was class. We went through to lunch, then connected with a number of coaches, went up and talked to a few people that I hadn't met before. People came up to me and talked to me. That's the best thing about all of these seminars, is meeting people and having these conversations and meeting new people. It's a great opportunity to put yourself in front of people that you admire. You can let them know that you admire their work or that you really enjoyed something that they put out or whatever. I had a couple of people come up to me and say they listen to the podcast, and I always laugh at that. I don't know why. It's just still a bit surreal that people listen to me talking. And asking me about things that were going on, asking me about the golf day. People were familiar with what was going on there. So that was class. And yeah, I really enjoy engaging with that as well. So don't waste time being shy at seminars, is what I'm going to say. Connect with as many people as you can that you're actually truly interested in connecting with. Ask as many questions as you can and get as much out of the day that you humanly can by being as present as possible in it. That would be my advice. And I don't think everybody does that. I think some people go to seminars and just sit in their same group they always do. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what they want to do, is be present with the people that they've gone there with. But I don't know if that is always the case for why you go to these things. And I'm sure there were some people avoiding me as well. I saw a few avoiding me, which was fine as well. I wasn't avoiding anyone anyway, and I connected with some great people as well. And as you all know, I'm always open to collaboration and conversation. So that's what really gets me going, I suppose. So like, yeah, that's what I tried to do on the day. After lunch then, was it after lunch or before lunch, Evie's episode. Evie Casagrande she's working with the Irish women's soccer team, and her presentation was class. It was really practical. It was not what we thought we were going to go through. And I thought that was the refreshing thing about the conference was, I think it's simultaneously the good thing about the conference and maybe the thing that made me think that it's not the same as other conferences that I've been to, and I probably didn't get as much out of it as I got out of other conferences. But I think that's because the ISCN conference is very general, so there's loads of people talking about loads of different topics, whereas other conferences I've gone to have been specific. They've been about one specific topic, and I think the generalist and the person that is new in the industry needs to go to both, but they primarily should be going to the more general conference, which is the ISCN conference, because they're covering a broad number of topics. And what you realize and what becomes apparent is that the conversations and the presentations that are given are not about sets and reps and loading and different protocols typically. Sometimes they are, but not frequently. A lot of the stuff is about soft skills, is about developing trust, relationships, what are your values, all things that aren't taught at higher level education typically, and that a lot of younger coaches and inexperienced coaches are missing. And I think that's the benefit of going to these, is it encourages younger coaches to develop their softer skills, and it shows them that coaching is both an art and a science, because some of the presentations are on research, so they're very science oriented, but some of the presentations are on practical experiential learning in the field, and that's also very useful. So it's not one or the other, and when we leave higher level education or finish our postgrad or our undergrad, we think like research is key and research is everything, but it's not true. And even the most experienced people presenting, like Dr. Ian Jeffries, or Professor Ian Jeffries, not sure, Ian Jeffries anyway, and he was class as well, really loved his presentation. They speak probably more about the art than they do about the science, even though it's a science-based conference, which is interesting. And that's one thing that I really enjoyed about it, but it's something that I'm probably preaching quite a bit, and it's something that I've delved deep into in the past. So that's probably why I didn't add many more strings to my bow in terms of concepts, but I learned more in terms of, and reminded myself, and I got more reminders of things that I had been doing that I should continue to do, but maybe I'm not doing. And then in terms of processes, why I liked Evie so much is she has quite a reflective process towards how she sets up a team for success and how she interacts with individuals, as well as quite a proactive process in preventing issues from happening. And that's something that Ian Jeffries talked about as well. And it's something that Patrick Harding talked about quite a bit as well, is preventing issues from becoming issues before they even are issues, by being on top of absolutely everything in the schedule, and knowing your athletes and knowing your players. And Evie talking more about knowing the coaches you interact with, as well as knowing the players and knowing what's going on in their lives and how you can accommodate them in better ways. So those were all great things that I took from it. I really loved all of those presentations. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. What I would say is it's very different from the more specific, like the Sportsmith Speed Conference, as well as the Speed Conference down in Oz that I went to, the Athletes Authority. I can't remember, Iron Edge Speed Summit it was called. That was very specific as well, and I probably learned some things definitely from the Speed Conference. That is a tongue twister. I took loads from that in terms of like new bits of knowledge and new bits of research and new bits of practical application and techniques that was directly appropriate to what I was dealing with and my niche that I was focused in. So I gained more in there because I was already in that niche. Whereas I think a younger coach might go in there and just think absolutely everything is gospel in there and just try to do too much too soon, not understanding what exactly each of the presenters was talking about. Whereas the more general ISCN conference, as I said, you're getting a touch of everything that everybody's doing, and that's probably why it's a good thing for maybe less experienced practitioners, as well as people that know that they're going there for the general aspect of everything that's covered. But also it's probably the reason that it left me wanting more from each of the presenters and more insight into each of the presenters. And that's potentially up to me then to reach out to those presenters and research a little bit more about what they're doing, because they were covering such a broad spectrum. They weren't delving into the details and delving into the weeds, and I really like the weeds, obviously. So that was simultaneously the good thing about the conference, as well as what left me wanting more as well. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. So following that, I was back down the road to Ross Gray to Tipperary, and I mean to say I have been shattered since. Probably could have done with the day off, but I'm glad I went all the same. I'm glad I went, and I connected and met tons of great people. And I knew that I'd regret not going as well, which is the reason that I went. And I think that's a piece of advice to anybody on the fence about these conferences. If you are on the fence and you don't know whether you should go or whether you should not go, or even if you're caught for time, this is another thing, because I actually had to leave early to get home for an event that evening. Like, just because you can't go to the whole thing doesn't mean there's not value in going to some of it. There's probably more value in going to some of it than there is in going, than the difference between going to none of it or going to all of it is. Like, going to some of it is probably closer to going to all of it than it is from going to none of it. So I hope I'm making sense there. I know it's a bit of a tongue twister, but I think there's value in being there even if you can't be there for the whole thing. And I know a lot of people went on Friday, and I'm raging I missed Friday because of the golf, because Ian Jeffries did a game speed presentation, and I was speaking to Conor Myler at the event, and he said you would absolutely love that. So I'm going to have to get on to the lads about the recordings, because I know everything was recorded. That would have been just the niche and just the specifics that I would be interested in. So I probably would have gained loads from that, and will gain loads from it if I look into it and do get that recording in the future. But be willing to ask as well. Like, I'm going to ask the lads, can I get access to that? And I'm sure they'll be welcome to me having a look at it, because they're trying to push the industry forward and move the industry forward, as we all are, most of us anyway. So like, I think be willing to ask questions of people, be willing to connect with people. I had a couple of people reach out to me about having coffees and whatnot. I'm not one for just going and having a coffee. I'd prefer to just get into the weeds, get into the nerdy stuff with someone. Why don't we have a coffee and pursue something at the same time? So why don't we have a coffee and I come into your workplace and I do a bit of shadowing? Or why don't we have a coffee and you come down and watch me work with an athlete for an hour or whatever, and I get your perspective on that too. I really love that kind of aspect of it. The other thing I love as well is, and I think it's some way about peer bonding, particularly with males, I suppose, and a lot of coaches are males, is you bond through the pursuit of a common goal. And I think like that's why golf provides that opportunity for a lot of people too. So I'm always keen to go golfing with people, especially coaches, and have conversations out on the golf course. So I think that's a happy medium too, because you're simultaneously networking, which people want you to do, but you're also relaxing and switching off. You have no phone, you have no stress. So if anybody from the conference wants to go for a game of golf, let me know. But I am off to Australia soon enough as well. So that brings me to today then. We had our second last episode of the podcast for the season that we're going to record. We're going to record another one next week. We'll see the logistics of that, because Owen is in getting his surgery soon. And yeah, the podcast has been challenging, and I think we're going to keep it going, but I don't know about the format that we've been doing. I'm hopeful that the content we're going to release over the course of September of the Backdoor Golf Invitational is going to go well, and we might be able to align ourselves with some good brands that will help us to keep it going, because we are one of the fastest growing GA podcasts. We're only a year in and we have over 1,000 subscribers anyway, and creeping up ever so slightly as well. And I'd say our YouTube channel is going to get quite a few more as well in the coming months as well. So we're happy with how we're moving. I would have liked us to move a little bit quicker, but I think we're missing the consistency this year. And unfortunately, that's the drawback of chasing that side of content and chasing that side of business, is it takes away from other aspects of the business. So it is now 20 to 8. I'm going to finish recording this. I'm going to send it off, and then I'm going to work and do a load of programming for a load of athletes. And it's not really that much of a healthy work-life balance today. The reason I'm under pressure is because we had the golf day Friday, I had the ISN conference Saturday, and I'm going to Italy tomorrow. And it's going to be a working holiday because I have a lot to catch up on. So I'm excited actually for the Backdoor cut to finish up the season, because it'll allow me and afford me the time to focus on other aspects of the business that need work, and allow me the time to focus on maybe not running from task to task so frequently, give me space in my calendar, and allow me to enjoy some time with friends out in Australia, which is one of the reasons that I'm going out there, because I have a good community out there. So that's on the horizon. After I get back from Italy, I have a number of in-person sessions to run with some athletes. I'm going to keep growing, keep pushing, and getting people into the online service. The PD Performance Premium Pack continues to grow, and we continually achieve success with people getting back to match play. I had a couple of messages from athletes today that played their first games at the weekend of championship, and they're absolutely delighted, and it's become just normal. Like, it's just something that happens now, and I'm still appreciative of the opportunity to help them to get there and the messages that come through. But I think initially it's like so monumental for you, but now we're doing it with so many athletes that it just becomes a thing that happens. But you still have to remember to be grateful for it. And it's one of the things that I say, because I have my 3 pieces of gratitude every morning. And one of the things that comes back to me time and time again is I'm grateful for my clients and the people that invest in my business and want to do business with me, and that I get to help every day. As well as obviously other things that are probably more common, like family, my dogs, coffee, the ability to play golf, my health, like my friends, my network, everything. But that is something that I'm grateful for as well. I'm grateful for the business going in the direction it is going. I'm grateful for each person that puts their faith in me. And as a result of that faith, I'm trying to do right by them and do my best to get them back in the field. And that's why I'm going to probably work late today, trying to get all of these programs done. Sorry, not trying, getting all of these programs done, because when you say try to do, you're accepting failure already, I think. So I'm going to get all these bits done now. I'm going to send off this, and then hopefully I'll get a couple of days off in Italy, but we'll see. I know that typically 5-6 days is typically all I can take off, but I'm only going for 5, and I think I'm going to be working for 2 of them. So we'll see how that goes. Other than that, excited to get down to Sydney, get to Coogee Pavilion, have a Diavola, I think is the pizza. One of those pizzas out of Pav. Best pizza in Sydney. I know it might be controversial. There mightn't be that many Sydney listeners, but I'm going to have one of them with a pint when I get down there, and I can't wait for that. As well as that, I can't wait to play a few rounds of golf with my friends down there, go for a swim on a Saturday. I sent a message today about everything I'm looking forward to, and just seeing them and being with them. So excited for the future, excited to have a little bit more downtime. I'm proud of all that we've achieved with both the PD Performance business in itself, as well as the Backdoor cut. And thanks to Dara and Owen as well, if they are listening too, for their patience and for them putting up with all of my ideas and being so enthusiastic about them. Not always enthusiastic, but pretty much enthusiastic all of the time, and believing that we could do it, because we did do it. And that was what I said to them on Friday was, lads, look, it was just an idea previously, but look what we actually achieved. We put it together, we've got the content, can't wait to get it out. We're achieving real change, and people are watching and people are liking it. So it's something to be proud of, and something that you don't want to wish away and just go to the next thing. So let's appreciate it But let's keep moving and let's keep dynamic and keep getting better and better with our content that we're creating, to help people as well as to just delight people and get people to enjoy it. So that's pretty much all that's been going on, guys. Just wanted to give you a quick update of what has been a hectic few weeks and a hectic weekend for sure. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have enjoyed it, please remember to like it, share it, and send it.